Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Well, students, last time, in the last lecture, we talked about what is electricity, what is electrostatics, what are the properties that we'll be studying, and how to produce electric charge. Now, this topic is again about the production of electric charge 13.1, but we'll be going through an activity 13.1 in it. And what is the activity? Take a plastic rod. Over there, we took an amber rod, we took a comb and ran it, we took the comb and we made it run through our hair. And then we took an amber rod and we rubbed it with silk. Now we take a plastic rod. So please remember, there are three different things that have been used so far. Take a plastic rod, rub it with fur. Now take a plastic rod and you rub plastic rod with fur. The amber rod was rubbed with silk. The comb was rubbed in your hair. Now suspend this rod, this plastic rod, horizontally by a silk thread. So this is a silk thread and this is the plastic rod which you have suspended with a silk thread. Take another plastic rod. Now bring a second plastic rod and rub it with fur as you have done before, and bring it near the suspended plastic rod. Okay, this is a plastic rod. You rub it with fur, suspend it with the silk thread. Take another plastic rod, rub it with fur and bring it close to it. Okay, what happens is repulsion takes place. Force of repulsion takes place. This force acts in this direction of this rod and this force acts in this direction of this rod. You will observe that both the rods repel each other. What is the conclusion that you draw? It means that by rubbing both rods, they got charged. And when they got charged, they had same kind of charge. That is why repulsion took place. So, conclusion, it means by rubbing both rods, they were charged. So, if you take same kind of rods, and you rub them with fur, like you took a plastic rod and rubbed it with fur, then same kind of charge appears on it, and that was the cause of the repulsion that took place between this plastic rod and this plastic rod. So activity 13.1 tries to emphasize upon this thing, that when you have same kind of a rod and you rub it with the same kind of material, and then you bring them together, suspend one rod and bring the other rod towards it, you will find that repulsion takes place and one rod goes in this direction, the other goes in this direction. They go away from each other. This is because they got charged, and when they got charged, repulsion, they had the same kind of charge, and because of which repulsion took place. Now activity 13.2. 13.2, is the same kind of activity, except that instead of a plastic rod, this was a plastic rod rubbed with fur. Now you have a glass rod which is rubbed with silk. Okay, now take a plastic rod, take a glass rod. Activity 13.2, take a glass rod. It's a different material as compared to plastic. Take a glass rod, rub it with silk. Here we rubbed it with fur. Now we rubbed it with silk. Suspend the rod horizontally. Now bring a plastic rod. So you have a glass rod, this one, and you suspend it with a silk thread, and then you bring a plastic rod and you rub it with fur and bring it near the glass rod. Now what happens? There are two different rods rubbed with two different materials, both having different kind of charge, and what happens is attraction occurs. This rod moves towards this rod and this rod moves towards this rod. So both acquire attraction and they move towards each other. Now what conclusion do you draw from this? The analysis is, in first activity, which was 13.1, both rods are plastic. Both the rods were of plastic and both were rubbed with fur, and both acquired the same kind of charge. In the second activity, both rods are unlike. अनलाइक मीन्स दोनों रॉड्स मुख्तलिफ हैं, एक ग्लास का है एक प्लास्टिक का है। ग्लास को हमने रब किया है विद अ डिफरेंट मटेरियल, प्लास्टिक को डिफरेंट मटेरियल के साथ। Okay, so both acquired different charge. Now both have acquired different charge, which means opposite charge. Hence attraction takes place because of the opposite charge. And you must remember, opposite charges are conventionally known as positive or negative charge. There are two kinds of charges, and conventionally they are known as positive charge and negative charge. What happened during rubbing? Negative charge is transferred from one body to another. When you rub it, negative charge is transferred from one body to another. Like you took the case of plastic and fur. In this case, what happened? Negative charge was transferred from one body to the other. Now conclusions, what conclusions do you draw from this activity? The conclusion is charge is a basic property of matter. ये याद रखना है आपने हमेशा कि चार्ज जो है ये एक बुनियादी खसूसियत है मादा की। जस्ट लाइक mass is a basic property of matter. Similarly, charge is a basic property of matter. Friction produces two different types of charges. Whenever friction takes place, two different kinds of charges are produced. In this case, we took a glass rod and rubbed with silk. In this case, we took a plastic rod and rubbed it with fur. So friction produces two different types of charges. Friction between what? Friction between the glass rod, which was rubbed with silk, and the plastic rod, which was rubbed with fur. Like charges repel. एक जैसे चार्ज होते हैं ना, अगर दोनों पॉजिटिव हो तब भी रिपल्शन होगी, दोनों नेगेटिव हो तब भी रिपल्शन होगी। लाइक चार्जेस रिपेल, एक जैसे चार्ज रिपेल। अनलाइक चार्जेस अट्रैक्ट, और दो मुख्तलिफ चार्जेस जो होते हैं ना, ऑपोजिट चार्जेस होते हैं, दे विल अट्रैक्ट, मीन पॉजिटिव और नेगेटिव। जस्ट लाइक इन द एक्टिविटी वी प्रोड्यूस्ड अ ग्लास रॉड and we rubbed it with silk, then we took a plastic rod, we rubbed with fur and brought them too close together. Attraction took place because they were unlike charges. And number 5, repulsion is a sure test of a charge on a body. Whenever a body repels other charge, this is where you can find out what kind of charge that body possesses. So, coming back and recapitulating what we did, this production of electric charge, activity 13.1, take a plastic rod, rub it with fur. Always remember, plastic rod is always rubbed with fur, and suspend this rod horizontally by a silk thread. Take another plastic rod. Now this was a plastic rod. Take a second plastic rod and rub it with fur. Again rub this thing with the fur and bring it near the suspended plastic rod. Both the rods, you will observe, will repel each other and both will move away from each other. This means that rubbing both rods, by rubbing both rods, they were charged. Now activity 13.2, which says take a glass rod, rub it with silk, suspend it horizontally, bring a plastic rod. Now this is a second material. Rub it with fur and bring it near the glass rod. Both will attract each other. So glass rod rubbed with silk, plastic rod rubbed with fur, brought close together, attraction takes place, both move towards each other. Analysis: in the first activity, both rods are plastic, so both acquired same kind of charge. In the second activity, both rods are different. They are made of different materials, glass and plastic. Both when rubbed with different fur and silk with different materials, they acquired opposite charge, hence attraction took place. These charges are conventionally known as positive and negative charges. During rubbing, negative charge is transferred from one body to another. Conclusion: charge is a basic property of matter. 2. Friction produces two kinds of charges. 3. Like charges repel. 4. Unlike charges attract. 5. Repulsion is a sure test of a charge on a body. Please make your notes, draw good headings, draw diagrams, label them. So at the start of the new chapter, gradually we are building up. These two are easy topics. Write them down and put keep studying them, keep studying them, so that they get you get conversant with the terms used, and you are very well understood about these things. You understand them very well, so that whenever the question comes and somebody asks you, you should be having a very clear concept of that. Thank you.